Welcome aboard, everybody. It is Sunday night. It is time for, that means Sunday Live with Richard Nongard and Scott Sandlin, brought to you by HPTI, Goal-Oriented Hypnotherapy, SubliminalScience.com, the ICBCH, and a host of other people, places, and things associated with me and Scott. Oh, the Hypnostore.com, which, of course, is right where you are right now. It is great to have everybody here, and tonight, Scott and I are going to be talking about visualizations. And so, Scott, why don't you kick this off while I type a message in the chat box? By the way, the chat box is below. If you want to ask a question or share a thought, just type it in that chat box below, as I am now about to do.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday evening. I'm, of course, Scott Sandlin. And like Richard said, this is brought to you by all these people and all these things and all this stuff. So, visualizations, and we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff with visualizations tonight. Of course, we'll also be talking about and covering what to do with people who aren't visual, but we'll touch on that very briefly because we're focusing tonight on what to do with the people who are, because a majority of the people you're going to work with are going to have the ability, if not at least the propensity, to visualize the things that you guide them to see in their mind's eye. And now, just a fun thing, as a little piece of trivia while Richard's still writing, I remember very vividly a memory from preschool. And, I was however old you are in preschool, 4 years old, 5 years old, whatever age that is. I remember not having the vocabulary to explain the mind's eye, right? It's just the idea of your internal vision of your imagination. And I didn't have the vocabulary or the wherewithal to explain that to another kid in my class. And so I tried to ask him if he could do that, and he was a non-visual kid. And so for about the next week, I thought I had a superpower that I could see things that weren't real. And it took until I talked to 2 or 3 other people before I realized that wasn't the case. But I still like that idea, that this is an amazing, amazing ability we have to hallucinate in a controlled manner, to rehearse an artificial reality with a consequence-free environment in which we are gods. And I think that's taken for granted because we're used to it, and it's something so special. And so we're going to spend the next 45 minutes really diving into how to make the most of that in your hypnosis sessions. So that's what tonight is about. Before we get into any of that, a couple tiny little housekeeping things. Of course, we're here every Sunday night. Of course, the recordings are also available in the archive. And of course, if there's a topic you guys want to hear about or a person you want us to interview, let us know. This topic is brought to you by no people. We came up with this one ourselves. So if there's any people or topics...
We visualized it, Scott.
We visualized it, exactly. So if you guys want to have specific topics or people, please let us know because we have fun with all those things. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because I've been looking at a lot of other hypnotist stuff lately. And with HPTI, I'm grading hypnosis projects all the time. And giving feedback for the Hypnosis 100 class, just the intro to hypnosis, watching people who are new to hypnosis. And I'm seeing people who are getting lazy in their visualizations, not just in HPTI Hypnosis 100. I mean, in a lot of places, I'm seeing hypnotists who are creating a construct and then doing nothing with it. It's just, they say, okay, imagine yourself at a beach. Great, you're at a beach. Now I want you to imagine yourself having a good life. Well, why the hell did we have the beach, right? We didn't use the beach for anything. And I understand having a safe place, but it's just packed on with no motivation, no thought, and no diving in. And there's so much we can get out of these constructs. There's so much benefit we can get out of these locations, and so much just good writing that we could do that I'm seeing a lack of in the stuff I was looking at recently, which is what prompted me to bring this topic up to Richard. And when I said that to Richard, he loved the idea. And so because of that, we said this was a topic we needed to hit for a Sunday night, so we made it this week. And so One of the things I want to talk about is getting the most out of some of these visualizations, as well as just some go-tos and some easy ones that you guys can use, and ways to make these visualizations more useful and to help you get more out of them with your clients. So, Richard, what are some visualizations and some locations that you like using just early on in a hypnosis process, or in working with a client early on, in your sessions?
Well, I always think that the best policy is to let the client create the visualization and give it to you. So while I really am a big fan of guided visualizations, I try to use as my starting point a frame of reference from the client. Now, if I haven't met the client before, or I haven't talked to them too much beforehand, maybe I don't have an idea. What?
Or if it's a group, for example.
Or if it's a group, right? I might have to create a suggestion. And I actually learned a great strategy from Michael Johns. And of course, he's a well-known stage hypnotist, has performed many shows in Las Vegas, and he does a visualization deepener in his stage hypnosis show. And most hypnotists have a creative visualization of that heavenly staircase, right? Descending the staircase and reaching the bottom and hitting deep relaxation. Well, this was back in the early 2000s. I was sitting at a show one day and I was really paying attention to his induction and to his deepener. And when he got to that, he said, now imagine yourself on a flight of, at the top of a flight of stairs, or the top of an escalator, or in an elevator. In other words, he came up with a lot of different options and just sort of let whoever was on stage during the deepening technique pick. Were they descending in an elevator, maybe a glass elevator? Were they going down an escalator because they're lazy like me and tend to like the people mover at the airport? Or do they enjoy the majesty of a beautiful staircase? And so there are a lot of ways, and I've really thought about that ever since. There are a lot of ways to really let the client, even if we're giving a suggestion for the suggestion there with an elevator, an escalator, or a staircase is we're going down. The metaphor is trance depth, to really let them have whatever they like. So here's one of the ways that I've really adapted that in my office. I'll say to a client, now imagine yourself somewhere that either you've been before, or a place you'd like to go, or a place of your own creation. And that lets my client really pick anything on, catch this, Scott, the planet, or even outside of the planet. For example, Scott, if you had $20 million extra dollars, would you be one of those people who would buy a lift on the next rocket ship to outer space from Richard Branson?
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I'm completely one of those space nerds that I would love to be out there.
Something told me that you would be one of those people. I would not, by the way. It took me years to overcome my fear of flying on airplanes, which I did with hypnosis, but I don't want to go out, into outer space, but some people do want to go into outer space. And so by saying, a place you've been before, a place you'd like to go, or a place of your own creation, it lets them create whatever they want to. Now, before we go any further, later on, we're actually going to do a hypnosis session that incorporates some visualization. But I want to show you how easy it is to really get the creative juices flowing. And so right now, before we go any further, what I'd like you to do is simply close your eyes and take in a breath. And as you breathe in and breathe out, take a moment to center yourself here in this class, learning new things and seizing the opportunity to create new experiences. Now, since your eyes are closed, because I suggested a moment ago you close your eyes, you can see essentially the dark backside of your eyelids, but we almost always see some colors reflecting through those thin eyelids, some shapes, perhaps even the image of what we had seen before we closed our eyes. It's almost as if the back of our eyelids is kind of like a movie projector, a screen, if you will, that really can see anything, that ranging from images of those things that are directly in front of us to reflections of our creative mind. And so right here, right now, before we go any further, with each breath, tap into that creative part of the mind that can create new experiences. And let those shapes or those colors from the eyelids begin to morph into a creative image that's important to you. Maybe an image or a scene like that, which might come from a movie, or simply the images and scenes that are a recollection of what we've seen before. It really doesn't matter. What's really most important is that right now you are able to access that creative part of the mind where images are created and thoughts are explored and new learning takes place. And let one image morph into another image. Let the scene change. See new colors, new shapes, new experiences, new people. Either coming from a creative part of the subconscious mind with no meaning, or recollections of experiences that perhaps do have meaning. It doesn't really make a difference. What's most important is that right here and right now, you allow yourself the freedom to visualize, to describe your thoughts and the world around you in a new way in your own mind. Streaming those images, letting one become another one and another one become a new one. Noticing how easy it is to visualize anything that's important to you. And now, of course, it's time to listen to Scott. And so open your eyes, take in a breath, feel refreshed, and feel fantastic. Now, I did that short little exercise just so you could see how really easy it is to turn on the visual imagery. Now, Scott, most people had an easy time with that. Probably about 70% of those who are here in our room tonight. But a few people had a difficult time with that. What do you do when somebody says, I can't visualize?
You know, and like you said, that it is about 30% of people have a real hard time visualizing. Now, most of those people aren't actually blind, but that's not in their representational system, something that's strong for them. The easy way to do this, and it's just some linguistic changes that you can make in your sessions, and you can be paying attention to their representational system order in your effective intake and pre-talk stuff. We don't need to get into how to do that tonight. The question you're asking is what to do once you've done that. And a big easy way to do this is just change the word see or visualize and just change that to imagine, right? And if you really want to dress it up, imagine in a way that makes the most sense for you, a waterfall. Now, maybe they imagine that by the sense of sound a waterfall makes, the sense of feel of, having it cascade down on their shoulders. And then maybe some of those people go from hearing and feeling it to then seeing it. And some of those people see a picture. Some of those people see a slideshow. Some of those people see a movie. Some of those people see a first person. Some people see a third person. And unless you've asked, you can't be certain which one of those things it is. And that's something that I want people to be very aware of. I see this as a pitfall. People start explaining the way they would see it to their client. And that creates an incongruent moment where the client now has to back up, and there's a mental friction moment where they have to change their image based on what the hypnotist's saying. A kind of an easy example of this. And
let me cut you off for just a second. What I'd like everyone to do, Scott just said waterfall. I want you to describe in one sentence or less in the chat box, when he said waterfall, what was your mental image?
Yeah, go ahead. Everyone just type in one sentence. Was it big? Was it small? Whatever it is that makes it a waterfall for you. Imagine that and type it out. And while you're doing that, I want to give you an example of sort of a pitfall. And this is something that I heard. I'm generalizing it and abstracting it so it's not going to give the person away. But I heard a hypnotist say this recently. They said, I want you to imagine standing on one side of a river and you have to cross that river. Don't worry, it's not very far, just a brief distance, maybe 100 meters or so for you to swim, okay? Now, there's a few things wrong with that sentence. First of all, a lot of people in America don't know how far 100 meters is in their mind. That's difficult to imagine, right? Now, I know how far 100 meters is because I'm a swimmer, right? And so I grew up swimming, so I know what 100 meters is. That's about 400 feet. Okay. Second problem is there's an assessment on that. Not very far, just 100 meters. To some people, that's a really far distance to swim. So you can't put those two things. You can't put the qualifier and the objective. You don't want to put the subjective and the objective side by side like that, because you're putting your opinion on their experience. You don't need to apply that there, right? If you're going to just go for the subjective, leave the objective out of it, and then they'll create the right distance, right? So you want to focus on the subjective, not the objective. Rather than say, it's a short distance to swim, only 100 meters or so. You could say, you're standing at one side of this river and the water's calm, so there isn't a strong current. So you see that the distance you need to swim is going to be very easy. It's a short distance to your goal, right? Now, I didn't put any objective facts in there. I just said that it was doable. Now, if this person's some Olympic swimmer, maybe it's, 5,000 meters or yards. And if it's somebody who's not a great swimmer, maybe it's 50 feet, right? We don't need to know the objectives there. We just need to know the subjective. And I see that as something that a number of hypnotists, they want to get so descriptive. They paint themselves into a corner. So in your effort to be descriptive, and descriptive is wonderful, don't paint yourself into a corner.
I think that you just tapped into something that's really important. The less descriptive I am, the more their subconscious mind can run with it. So, for example, I might say, and with your eyes closed, imagine the sound of a waterfall. And as we can see from this chat box here, I was indoors watching a waterfall at the mall. Gary Bullock was watching a small stream of water. Spunky Speaking was in a naturally wooded area, noisy and refreshing. Maybe something big like, Ikaka Falls in Hawaii. Somebody else said a waterfall that they can walk up to and feel the spray. I don't know, Niagara Falls is big, but you can do that in a small, little tiny waterfall also sometimes. And so there were really a lot of different ways that people describe this. But if I begin to say, imagine stepping up into, near a powerful waterfall, it's 100 feet tall, from the top to the bottom. I'm giving them my mental image rather than letting them create their own mental image. And the problem with this is the more descriptive I get, the more their conscious mind comes into play. Well, wait a minute. It's not, a triple falls like Niagara. It's just one small stream at the shopping mall, right? That's what happens in their conscious mind. Or with the staircase. Imagine yourself standing at the top of a heavenly flight of stairs. The carpet is purple. The arm rail is made of birch wood. The brass tacks are on the side. Well, wait a minute. Maybe they had, pink shag carpet and it was a brass rail, not a wooden rail. And so their conscious mind comes into play and it becomes real distracting. And so if we can guide their experiences with as general of terms as possible, we increase the likelihood of them remaining in the subconscious area of the mind.
And again, we're going after the feeling, right? It's a staircase. This is a stable, safe staircase that you are looking forward to descending. Those types of things, because you're going after a set of emotions. Now, going back to that description I just gave of the river distance, right? I'm talking to a lot of hypnotists who are playing with this right now, and a question was asked to me, and I'm just going to ask you, Richard. They say, well, what if giving those descriptors is important for the script later? What if the waterfall needs to be big so I can turn it down later? What if the river needs to be big so that only they can get across? Is there a way that you can put in those descriptors so that this isn't a problem?
Well, I think that sometimes we have to pick and choose what's most important. If I'm working with an established client, and I know that they have the capacity to visualize and even to follow my suggestions, I might even say to them, and I'm going to give you a set of cues that are going to relate to a visualization experience. And it's important, of course, that even though you might see things from a different perspective, that you consider my ideas or act on my suggestions, visualizing in the way that I'm suggesting to you. the reason, of course, is because at some point later on, I'm going to be giving you some direct suggestions related to how well you follow these instructions. So I can do that, but I generally think that anything is possible, and that if I can create an artfully vague or an NLP language, a chunked up visualization, I can also create a chunked up or an artfully vague suggestion that that the metaphor was valuable or useful to them. I might even say, and in your own mind, I'm sure that you can consider the possibilities for overcoming. Choosing in your own mind, what is the best way for you to cross this distance? What distance?
Right.
Whatever distance is important to them. And so learning the language patterns of Ericksonian hypnosis can really be helpful to us in using these metaphors of visualization in a way that's helpful to them.
Yeah, and since you brought up Ericksonian language, I think something that's more in the NLP world, but a derivative of Ericksonian language processes, is what's known as the adverb-adjective presupposition, where you put the adjective before the noun. So if you say a waterfall, okay, if you say a waterfall that is big, you might have already had Kelly's small waterfall at the mall. But if you say, imagine a great big waterfall, because it was great and big before it was a waterfall, they didn't picture the wrong thing first, right? So if you're going to, for whatever reason, really want to have a lot of control and influence over the visualization, there's reasons sometimes where you need to for a script. You want to put your descriptors before the nouns. You want to get those adjectives first. And it's not, very grammatically pleasing, but that's okay. But adjectives first. Exactly. Descriptors before nouns, adjectives before nouns. So that's the game, right? If you're going to describe the thing, describe it before you create it. A big, beautiful, exciting waterfall. What's an exciting waterfall? I don't know, but this sounds exciting, right? And so doing it that way helps you control the frame. So again, if you're going to do that, you want to separate subjective and objective. You don't want to have facts and opinions, because then you're talking about your opinions of those facts. So you let them have the opinions or let them have the facts, and put it before the noun. I hope that makes sense. If anybody has questions, please put them in the chat room, because I see that it's a little bit of some inside baseball stuff that some hypnotists will really like and be nodding their heads at, and some hypnotists will be scratching their heads and saying, "What the hell is Scott talking about?" So if you have questions about that, feel free. This is the chat room. Cool.
By the way, every Sunday night we get together so you can say, "What the hell is Scott talking about?" It gives us a forum to listen to some people that we often interview. You can go back into the archives and see all kinds of cool things. Last week, we actually replayed an interview with Kelly Woods. We have some great interviews coming up with some HPTI presenters over the next couple of weeks, and people who are going to be at HypnoThoughts. And it's a free place for you every Sunday night if you're in any of the HPTI or the ICBCH courses, or just interested in hypnosis, to ask any questions about anything that's important to you. Informal, as you can tell, I'm wearing my Sunday afternoon barbecue shirt because the weather was perfect and I was grilling tonight. Scott is in his laid back shirt on the couch with the blue pillow there.
Yeah, hanging out, getting comfy.
Hanging out, getting comfy, and every Sunday night, this is what we do. Now, let me talk a little bit about some ideas for increasing visualizations, because every now and then, you said great, you gave a great idea where somebody says, well, I can't see pictures in my mind. Well, just imagine, describe it in a way that makes sense for you. I'm sure that some people in the room are familiar with Wim Winger's process for image streaming. which is a right brain enhancement for creativity and intelligence enhancement. If you're not familiar with Win Wenger's ideas, go ahead and Google him and check it out. Win Wenger, I'll spell it there. I have a YouTube video that I made a couple of years ago demonstrating his image streaming process. So I can even put a link to that so you can find it later on if you want to. Non-yard image streaming. But he answers on his website the question, what happens if a person can't seem to visualize? How can you sort of jumpstart this? And there are a lot of, by the way, his website is just winwenger.com. And he gives some great tips here. I'll put it in the chat box so people can find his website. Some great tips. Have a person begin streaming or creating mental imagery from their memories. Ask the client, what would be worth describing? One way to do it is to, like when you're a kid and you press on your eyes and you see those shapes and blobs and colors from putting a little pressure on your eye, and sort of like a living Rorschach, let your client begin to see the shapes and the clouds that form behind the eyes after they gently rub on their eyes for a moment. And those are just some of the ideas. There are a lot of other ideas, including opening a door and seeing what's behind the door. Many people who have perhaps a difficult time with visualization are pretty good at auditory learning, and they're able to create some visualizations from their auditory experiences or from the background noises. There's a technique that he includes on his website called air sculpting. And with the eyes closed, begin sculpting from thin air as if it were clay, an object of art, keeping the eyes closed, holding the sculpture in the hand, and then describing its appearance in detail. All just different techniques. And there are a zillion of them on his website, which I posted a link, that although not designed or intended for the hypnotist, are definitely all hypnotic methods. And the image streaming idea is just a real great way of increasing creativity. And image streaming is all about having a person take some time and just letting the images stream, and often recording into a handheld recorder, or since it's 2015, Audacity that's on the computer screen, or if you're an Apple person, your whatever the hell they call it on Apple, and letting those thoughts flow and practicing describing them. And the idea in image streaming is that when we do this, we get in the habit of releasing our creativity. By the way, Kelly Woods and I just did a class a couple of weeks ago on couples counseling, enhancing communication. And image streaming is a fun idea for couples. And Hillary just posted a great idea. Like opening Doctor Who's phone box and seeing what's inside. I can now understand what you mean, because I have officially watched one Doctor Who episode.
How was it?
I thought it was awful, but different people are into different things.
I never watched it either.
I have a policy. I never watch any science fiction movies where one human fights another non-human with swords, and we were getting awfully darn close to that line in the Doctor Who. But lots of people are into it. My son never misses it, and obviously Hillary likes it. So, along with millions of others. So.
I want to highlight one of the things you said there from the Win Wenger stuff, which is my favorite, and I didn't get it from him. I don't remember where I picked it up, but it's not very original. It's the idea of, if they have trouble visualizing, start with memories, because they visually saw that. And so it's not about creating something. It's about reconstructing or recalling something, and using that sort of as a bridge, and then you can start modifying and warping something that already was there if you want to create a fantasy. So I think that's something that's really easy to do with those. Just wanted to mention. To me, when we're talking about visualization, we're talking about these clients that are highly visual. You can get into specific details in those memories, you start getting into outfits that were being worn or things in the background. And one of the fun things to do with the client is have them remember something and then dive into the background of that memory, right? Let's just say it was, Easter, and you just had a family party for Easter. You go back to a memory of a conversation you're having with one of your relatives at your Easter barbecue sort of get together, and then look over the shoulder of that person you were talking to and see there are some other people talking over there. Imagine what it'd be like if you could fly over the shoulder of your cousin and go over and you listen to your sister and your nephew having a conversation. You could listen to that conversation and get engaged in that conversation instead. Now, if you can do that, you can imagine all sorts of stuff. And so it's sort of a convincer built in. Or you could, another one that Richard said that's nice that I think comes from that is go ahead and just look at your hand right now, right in front of your face. There it is. Now, close your eyes and see that hand. Imagine that hand just as it was a moment ago. If you need to cheat, open your eyes and look, and then close them back down and see if you can keep that hand there in your mind's eye. And just a couple little things like that to ease the client into the process of visualizing. So there's a couple pieces there. Let's see. I'm just reading the chat room real fast.
You read the chat room, and I was just doing some Googling. Because remember, Google is your friend, unless, of course, you're spying and even turning that stuff over to the government, which is why I recommend using DuckDuckGo.com as a search engine instead of Google, but that's a whole other webcast. So I was actually DuckDuckGoing rather than Googling. And so I Googled ideas for creative visualization. Here's one I think you would like, Scott. Train your anger dragon.
Train my anger dragon.
Right. Now, I don't know if that's because of the train visualization, Scott Sandland's pain train, but maybe training the anger dragon is something you could check into. But I'm just going to read the list of different things that I found here. Visualization for healing, mining out the pain. Never thought about using if I lived in Colorado or if I lived in West Virginia and I was working with pain control clients, that might be really great. A secret garden special place visualization. That's pretty cool. A hot air balloon ride. Now that would really appeal to me. Okay, I would like you to take me on a hot air balloon. Well, maybe not you. I mean, maybe somebody a little more romantic than you, but.
No offense taken.
No, but nonetheless, a hot air balloon, would that be a great visualization for me? I would like that. The heart wash. That's pretty interesting.
Heart wash.
Heart wash. The relaxation gym workout for test-taking anxiety. That's pretty interesting. So you can get ideas just by finding out what other people do. One of the things that I find interesting is that we often learn something, and in hypnosis training schools, when they teach visualization, they usually teach two basic visualization scripts. Script number one, going to the beach. Script number two, deepening down a staircase. Well, I love beaches as much as the next guy. In fact, I might actually like them more than the next guy. But it does become, in many cases, a little bit overused or too stereotypical. And then, of course, we have to take into consideration, right now I'm sitting in, I know it looks like I'm sitting in Japan, but I'm actually sitting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was 14 hours to the nearest beach. And there are a lot of people here who have actually never seen a beach. Unlike where you sit, which is literally 100 feet from the water's edge.
Yeah, well, it's 100 feet from the sand, but it's about 300 feet from the water's edge. I haven't been to the beach in 4 hours. But for me, it's the opposite of that problem. If I say, imagine yourself at the beach, that's not a special thing for Antonio and I. When we're trying to get a client to imagine a relaxing, comfortable place, it's got to be something a little bit more special than just a beach, because we have those and we know how to be stressed at the beach because we've been that. So we need to be doing a little bit more creative thinking. And I think you're right. I think the beach is such a cliche. in the training, and it's not a bad thing, but it feeds laziness, and I think hypnotists should be looking for. And anyone who's taken a Hypnosis 100 class with me has heard me use this example. I think it's wonderful. I was at a training and I heard another hypnotist talking about his visualizations, his constructs, and his scripts that he creates. And he said, I never waste a doorway. And I heard that, and he said, every doorway is a portal to change. And every doorway is a threshold that once you cross, you are in a new space. And I use every door strategically. And when I heard that, it made me want to look at all my scripting and all my visualizations and not waste any opportunities, and to look for things that I've been wasting, and for looking for moments where I've been lazy. And I'd really like to encourage everyone who's watching this live or recorded to be harder working in your creative time. You know, all these things are just pieces of Legos, right? They're all Lego pieces, and you can assemble anything you imagine. And if you just keep building the same thing over and over, you might as well be an MP3. So I really want to encourage you guys to get into just diving into the creativity of this. And it is so much more fun when you do. Now, again, like Richard said, and I completely agree, there are times where being vague is the best thing to be for a client, but you can be vague while still being creative. Being vague is not the same thing as being generic. You can be creative while being vague. And you can play with things in a lot of different ways. And you can make modifications and have a lot of fun with it in a way that makes all the difference for some clients. So I would like to encourage all of you to do that. By the way, it is 7:36. Quick things. We've got some cool HPTI classes coming up. Richard and I are teaching in just a couple weeks in Daytona Beach at the IMDHA conference. We're doing a one-day class on addiction, and then shortly thereafter, June 5th and 6th, I believe, we will be teaching a two-day class on addiction at HPTI's new headquarters in Newport Beach, California. And then you can see us and a bunch of other people at HypnoThoughts Live. So those are fun things to visualize and imagine yourself attending and enjoying now.
By the way, right below the chat box, so if you went all the way down the page, scrolling away, below the chat box is actually a picture of the two of us advertising our June 5th and 6th class. The great thing about it is you can come to the class in California at the HPTI headquarters, or you can view it online from anywhere in the world. So now, Scott, every Sunday night we actually go through a hypnosis session. Tonight will be no exception. And Scott and I haven't planned this out, but we're pretty good at winging things. And so I suggest that both of us guide everybody through a hypnosis session here, incorporating visualization and simply sort of winging it. So we'll do an impromptu two-man visualization induction with everybody who's online watching us. How does that sound, Scott?
I'd like to add a wrinkle. I love it. I haven't done a dual induction with you in a long time. I would like someone to pick the thing we are going to create a visualization about, so we don't even have to pick it.
Woohoo, excellent idea.
Someone type in a location, an object.
A place you've been before, a place you'd like to go, or a place of your own creation, or forget about a place, just type in something and your favorite topic for visualization, and we'll use that as our starting point. We'll even turn it into a metaphor. So there we go. Now,
Casey, I hope your list isn't for us. I hope that's a list for Soon He Speaks.
Yes, we're not going to create a visualization of anxiety. I don't know, we could, sleep. All right, somebody type in
a thing, a noun, an activity, whatever you want it to be.
Robot pig basement. Okay, let's go.
Robot pig basement? We can do it.
We can do it. I think we have seconded the robot pig basement. All right, let's start there.
All right.
We're going to demonstrate that you can start anywhere in hypnosis.
All right, we're going with robot pig basement. All right, everyone, go ahead. And whenever you're ready, take a nice deep breath in And if you haven't already done so, as you exhale, close your eyes. Take another comfortable breath in. And as you exhale, relax even further down. And over the next few moments and the next few breaths, you'll find yourself settling into a peaceful and comfortable rhythm. And within that rhythm is a relaxation. And within that relaxation is a calm at the center of who you are. And as you find and connect with that calm at the center of who you are, you can seek out that quiet tranquility. Because over the next few moments, Richard and I are going to be talking about a few things. And as I do, there'll be moments where you focus on the sounds of our voice and the thoughts it brings up, the images dancing in your mind. And other moments you might just drift off, enjoying those images so much that our voices become less and less important, as those images are all that really matter. Because those images are going to be pleasing, pleasant, and fun in a way that's going to help you get the most out of what you're looking for. And I'd like to talk to you about a very simple thing. I'd like to talk to you about creation. Because creation and invention is a process. And creating something isn't just flipping a switch. Creating something is about working, toiling, and digging in. And in that creativity and in that effort are great rewards. And an easy way to think of that is a workspace, where someone could be inventing, working, and building a robot, perfecting all the technology, hardware and software required to make this the best way they want it to be.
Using that creative mind and that creative workspace, maybe a place where you've created before or a new place where you can create now. Imagine the untapped potential of the mind, just like the inventor of a robot might choose to solve a practical problem like cleaning the floor and inventing the Roomba. Or another inventor might dream big, figuring out how to fly to another planet. You have the opportunity to tap into that creative potential. And you'll notice the mind as it is accessing its creative potential. Thinking thoughts, random thoughts. It's almost as if they seem to come out of the basement of our mind. Maybe even thinking absurd thoughts like that of a robot pig and how practical it might be. Easier to care for than a dog. But at the same time, interesting, useful, and even just plain old fun, because ultimately that's what our visualizations are about. They're about creating fun, about creating creativity, and about unleashing the potential within us to move from the basement of our ideas to a higher place.
You can imagine what it would be like if you were an inventor within your mind, within your workshop, within the basement of your unconscious mind, and you were creating this robot pig, not because the pig is important, but because it's fun. And creating with a sense of silliness, with a sense of levity, with a sense of adventurousness and pleasure. You could imagine what it would be like to be working on something and to share it and to show the silliness and the fun. And what will it be like when it works? Is it life-size or is it small? Does it look real or does it look mechanical? Does it make sounds? You could imagine this pig, for the sake of making it a pig, because it's intentionally off, because it's weird, because it's silly, because it shows the power of your unconscious mind to flex those creative muscles and make something that you couldn't possibly have spent time imagining before. And yet here you are imagining in your mind's eye now something with real vivid details. How lifelike it can possibly be. How fun it would be. And you can also imagine somebody you like coming over and seeing this thing and how they react. And now you can imagine what it would be like if instead of putting in the effort to make something silly, you made something of value. Not that there's something wrong with silly, of course, but because you use the skills developed in the silliness and apply them, just like the Karate Kid starts off waxing on and waxing off the car and all those things, he ends up applying those things to martial arts. You could imagine if creating this robot pig was just like a Mr. Miyagi moment, where all of a sudden you realize you were doing something that you didn't know you could do before.
As you breathe in and breathe out, here in this chair, listening to this webcast, release anything either known or unknown keeping you from accomplishing your highest level of potential. Knowing that in a moment when you open your eyes, you will have not only taken a few minutes to experience creativity here, but that you'll be able to step out of your door tomorrow morning, unless you're in Australia later this afternoon, and step into a place where you can use some fun or some silly learning to benefit other people, because that's really the greatest value in hypnosis, our ability to translate these techniques and ideas and to share them with others, whether they're clients or whether they're family members or whether they're people we meet on a day-to-day basis in our real worlds as we go through real tasks. And so as you breathe in the next breath, let the oxygen from that breath go deep into the lungs. Let it oxygenate each and every cell of the body, and be ready in a minute to open the eyes. When I count to 3, opening the eyes, feeling fantastic. 1, 2, 3. Opening the eyes, feeling fantastic, having enjoyed this short hypnotic experience in creating a robot pig in the basement.
So there we go. That's a fun one. And we didn't even get into the comedy routine of it, which is probably for the best for those of you who know what that was a reference to.
Oh, you see, I missed that show, but now I understand exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah, that's why I don't know who guest was. I don't know who that was, but they were referencing a stand-up comedy routine that a few of us know of.
Yeah. I just realized that. Right? I thought that was completely arbitrary. All right, next time we'll go with Moon Station. Great show. I hope everybody had fun. Tonight was a night to talk about, of course, visualization, how we might improve our skills and abilities as hypnotists. And every week, same time, same channel, we get together to pass along some ideas that are useful to you, that have been useful to us. And we hope that you have a hypnotic week and a fantastic time working with other people. Thank you.
Thank you.